Hello, Redeemer. This video is to provide a little bit of explanation about the Passover Seder that we have sent out attached to this email. We thought we would provide a little bit of explanation of why we're sending it out and what it is, so that you might want to participate in it this week as a family. So as the Israelites left Egypt when God rescued them from slavery, he asked them to remember what he had done for them. And he asked them to every year be sure to remember and tell the story to your children and remind yourselves of what I've done for you. And we find that God asks his people to do that. And over the years, the Jewish tradition has kept with that practice. And they have developed a beautiful Seder or an order. Seder just is another word for an order. And so we have taken some of those elements that they have traditionally done, and we've modified them a little bit. But this meal was actually the meal that Jesus was participating in the night before he was crucified. When he was with his disciples, he was observing a Passover meal, and he used the elements around him, the meal that was so familiar to all of them, and he redefined them. He redefined them to center around himself. And when the Passover was initially instituted, it was supposed to be something that helped them remember their exodus from Egypt. And Jesus takes it, that rescue from Egypt, and Jesus takes it and he points to an even greater rescue, a rescue that he was about to accomplish in rescuing us from sin and death. And this is one way for us to be able to enter into the Holy Week, the week that Jesus lived, the week before his death. And so we have, like I said, modified this version of a Seder, and we want it to help us remember not only the rescue that God provided to the Jewish people out of Egypt, but also the ultimate rescue that Jesus brings in rescuing us from sin and death. And so what you will find attached to this email is a PDF of the actual order. And the very first page has a list of all the materials that you'll need to carry out this meal together. And because of the times that we're living in, we are really, really hoping that you will be able to shelter in place and you won't need to go to the store to get any of these things. So we've also provided a substitution list. So I'm sure you might not have matzah hanging around your house, but maybe a cracker that doesn't have any leaven. And we've kind of added explanations of what each of these elements is meant to do within the Seder. And so maybe you can think of a different substitution that might work for you so that you don't have to go out and get these things. This is designed to be a family event. It's designed for us to be able to remind ourselves and remind our children about what God has done. And so there's places for children to read. There's places where everyone reads together. There's places where just a leader is reading. And so I would invite you to make this a family event. And if your kids can't read yet, that's okay. Maybe provide some coloring sheets and ask them to color what they're thinking about. But it's very interactive. There's very few things in our life where we get to use all of our senses to experience a truth of God. And this does just that. We eat certain things and drink certain things at certain times to be able to taste bitterness in our mouth, to remind us of the bitterness of slavery, to bring tears to our eyes and mourn the sin, and taste something sweet. And so I would encourage you to really take time. This probably should only take about 45 minutes going through. You're just going to read through it. And so I would encourage you to take time this week to participate in this. One last thing I would say is that when Jesus is, the passage we always talk about when he takes the bread and breaks it, and he takes a cup and all those things, that actually comes straight out of a Passover Seder. And there's 4 different cups that you drink from, and there's different times that you eat different pieces of matzah. And when Jesus took those elements, it was within a Seder. He picked up the afikomen, the promised part, the matzah that had been set aside, and he said, "This is my body broken for you." And that probably would have blown their minds. And he picked up the third cup, the cup of redemption, and said, "This is my blood poured out for you." And so, as one final encouragement and push to maybe try this out if you never have before, is it brings a whole new meaning and understanding to the communion elements that we take and how they fit in their cultural setting within a Passover Seder, and how Jesus's disciples' minds would have been blown for him to lift those things at that time. So we would encourage you to take part. We, as a family, our family has found it very meaningful. And so we would just invite you as a church to participate in this Holy Week. We're praying for you. We love you, and hopefully we'll get to celebrate with you on Sunday with our parade.